Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Juan's World. A little bit surprising that I'm back so soon, given that on Friday I said, I'm not going to be back for a while. And that was because I was drowning in editing work. It was just overwhelming. But I put on a huge push, and I got it all accomplished in 4 days. Roughly speaking, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and sent it off on Monday, and now here we are at Tuesday, and I actually don't have any editing to do for the next few days. And I was thinking about a particular topic because yesterday was Plough Monday. Now, Plough Monday is the Monday after Epiphany, and it's a wonderful festival. It's English, and it's kind of complicated, but I'll try to simplify things a little bit. You remember I said that Alfred the Great in the 9th century, decreed that the farm workers, the peasants, should have a 12-day holiday over the solstice. Well, that brings you to roughly the 6th of January, the date of Epiphany. And so the next Monday, you're supposed to go back to work. and so what people used to do, particularly in East Anglia, that is the area around Cambridgeshire and Norfolk and Suffolk, instead of going back to work, they would decorate a plough with ribbons and various things, and drag it around the town, begging for money to buy beer. So in other words, like their first thought when they had to go back to work was, well, yeah, let's have a holiday first. Now, I don't know how widespread Plough Monday ever was, and it hasn't been traditionally celebrated since the 19th century. But various revivalists have put it back in place again. There was a time when children were encouraged to do it in the early 20th century, when folklore in general had been degraded to a sort of children's habit. My mother in the 20s and her sister used to be part of a maypole celebration in their school. My aunt was the Queen of the May. My mother was the town crier. And she used to go around with the bells saying, oh yay, 3 cheers for the Queen of the May. Although she didn't know the word cheers, and so she used to say 3 chairs for the Queen of the May. But anyway, a lot of it devolved on children in the early part of the 20th century, and then it died out. And then post-war years, people who were interested in Morris dancing and sword dancing and wassailing and whatever brought it all back. But it's not the same custom at all. But here's my thing. On Plough Monday, I traditionally make a plate of cheeses and bread. And I always have a pickle with the cheese. And I thought, this year I'll make pickled eggs, and I've got some pickled onions, some pickled garlic, some pickled lime. So let's talk about pickles. Now, the history of pickles is amusing, complicated, all those kinds of things. The archaeology of the Middle East suggests that pickles were being made in the second millennium BCE. That is about 4,000 years ago, in other words, because of pots with remnants of discernible acidic residue and vegetable material and so forth. Now, basically, a pickle is something, and I say thing because it can be meat, it can be eggs, it can be vegetables, it can be fruit, it can be just about anything, which is either brined, that is, packed in salt, or vinegar, and that's it. It gets complicated because you can add other flavorings and so forth, but deep down, that's the concept, and it's so easy. I make pickles all the time by taking something like shallots. I've just made a brand new batch of pickled shallots, or I've laid them down. That is, you peel the shallots and put them in malt vinegar for, I don't know, a week, 10 days, a month. They get richer as they mature, and they keep forever. And that's the point. The point is that pickling has been a way of preserving fresh vegetables, in particular, for a long time. It seems that the earliest known pickle in the Middle East is cucumbers. Well, we still pickle cucumbers. Dill pickles are an essential element of a deli plate in New York. Pickled onions are an essential part of the ploughman's lunch, with cheese and bread, maybe some butter, at least one pickled onion, possibly a pickled egg. When I lived in England in the 1960s, it was extremely common to have a big jar of pickled eggs behind the bar, because in the evenings they didn't serve food, but if you got a little peckish, well, you could get a pickled egg, and they keep for a very long time. And here you can see I've made a pickled egg in rice wine vinegar. Now, the first thing that I consider when making pickles is which vinegar I'm going to use. And the traditional English vinegar for pickled eggs and pickled onions is malt vinegar, which is not easy to come by outside of the UK, but you can get it. And it's very richly flavored and makes a particularly strongly flavored pickled onion or a pickled egg. But here in Asia, I usually use rice wine vinegar. You can also use apple cider vinegar, what have you. Now, let's do a little etymology first. Vinegar is French, vin aigre, like sharp wine. In other words, it was discovered at some point when people were laying down wine, and some of it went sour. And you've got two choices. You can throw it out, or you can use it for something else besides drinking. And here's the historical catch that I don't quite know how to think about. Who was it, or who were the people? I don't want to talk about individuals making these decisions, but let's say a community made a decision. Sour wine does wonderful things to radishes or to cucumbers. Now, who discovered that? Because we know when we look at the physiology of taste, it's very complicated. The tongue itself has at least 5 kinds of taste buds, and the classic 4 are sweet, salty, bitter, and sour. And in the 20th century, it's been discovered that the tongue can also detect umami, which is the savor of MSG found in seaweeds and first discovered as a chemical by the Japanese. But taste is also a combination of what the tongue is doing to a food and what your nose is doing. And a lot of taste has to do with nasal aromas. And so different vinegars are going to have different savors from your nose, but on your tongue, they're sour. And at what point did people say, this is good? Because sweet is pretty obvious, you know. I mean, there's an evolutionary reason why we like sweet things, because if we pick fruit and it's very sweet, then we're likely to eat it, and in the process we'll eat some of the seeds, and then nature will take its course and we'll distribute the seeds elsewhere, and the seeds will reproduce and so forth. All of that is understood. But it's also understood that if we bite into a fruit and it's sour, then we reject it. And, you know, like we wait until it's sweet and then we eat it. Oh, fine. But what was the process whereby a group of people were eating various things and they ate something sour and they said, that's interesting, I like that, maybe I'll do something with that. That's one of those, dunno. And when you think about your own life, when did you begin to turn the corner and start savoring sour things? Well, I mean, maybe you don't, but presumably you put something sour on salads now and again. Maybe not. I mean, in Argentina, we don't put vinegar or lemon juice on salads. We just put olive oil. But that's because in Argentina, they really don't like strong flavors. They don't like spicy. They like bland things. So they're not real crazy about sour. But most cultures are in love with sour in one way or another. Now, in England, you go to the fish and chip shop and you get a packet of chips. It used to be 6 pence of chips. And they put on salt and vinegar. You know, like the sour and salty tastes bring out the savor of the chips. But Asia, they go overboard with pickles. In Japan, a lot of traditional households have a pickling bucket. And in fact, I used to have one when I lived in New York. You start off with the dregs of what's left when they make sake. It's just kind of a moist paste, and you put various things together, some seaweed and whatnot. And over time, you have a pickling bucket, and then you take, let's say, some radish or some ginger or whatever. In the morning, you put it in the bucket, and you have a light pickle by the evening. Or you can leave your pickles in there for a few days, and then they'll get richer. And in Korea, you can't have a meal without kimchi. Kimchi is pickled cabbage. It's got other things in it too, but it's basically pickled cabbage. And I used to work with Koreans and have lunch with them, and like lunch was just not complete without kimchi. Here in Cambodia, we have pickles of various sorts, pickled fish, and some pickled vegetables. And throughout Asia, you won't find an Asian culture that isn't just absolutely riddled with various forms of pickle. So how does that come about? Is there some kind of genetic proclivity towards the sour? See, bitter is an interesting taste as well, because there is a particular gene that can make you oversensitive to bitter. If you have one of these bitter genes inherited from your father and from your mother, then you become what's called a taster, and that makes bitter really unpleasant. And tasters really don't like any of the cruciferous vegetables, you know, the members of the cabbage family, like broccoli, cauliflower, and so forth, because it's too bitter for them. There are people who inherit one gene for tasting from one of their parents, and non-tasting gene from the other parent, and they're more likely to tolerate bitter tastes. And then there's non-tasters who don't have the gene at all, and they're fine with all those kinds of vegetables. And presumably they'll also enjoy a bitter beer and anything else that's bitter. But when it comes to sour, I don't believe that there's been a full investigation of the genetics of it. So what makes us like sour things? I love, in small quantities, sour candies. You know, the jelly candies that are mostly, well, don't know about mostly. They've got a lot of sweetness in them, but when you first taste them, they're really sour, and they're fun. Well, how does that happen? How does it happen that we become not just inured to sour, but we actually like it? How does our taste, and I'm talking about taste in an aesthetic sense, I mean, how do our tastes evolve to the point where we really want sour things? So going back to yesterday, to Plough Monday, I put together a plate of cheeses, and I made a pickled egg, and I had some pickled onions, and I also had two pickles which are both English, which I came across in an Australian supermarket not long ago. One of them is called Piccalilli. It's pickle plus mustard, and is used to make pickled cauliflower. And then what's just called the original Branston pickle, which is an absolute essential for bread and cheese by English people. And not sure what's in it. I'll have to take a look at some point. I'll flash on the screen what the contents are. But it just made me think as I was eating my pickles, and all day I just kept going to my stock of pickled onions and fishing out one and having it and thinking, gosh, this is really nice. I mean, very sour, but really nice. So how does that cultural preference for sour or bitter or salty or sweet, how does that happen? Well, the anthropologist in me doesn't know, but I'm going to go back to making some more pickles, and I will see you at some point or other. I don't know. So please keep telling your friends about my videos. Please like, please subscribe, and I will see you some point in the future.